Hey, Fabiana, how are you doing?
Good, Joe. Yourself, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks. So today on the Data Nerd Herd, we have Fabiana Clemente. So for people who don't know who you are, do you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. As Joe introduced me, I'm Fabiana Clemente. I'm from Portugal, and I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own startup in the data space that is called YData. And I'm a really passionate person about data, machine learning, and to learning new stuff.
That's awesome. And I guess, what got you into the data space? It's a space that attracts all sorts of people. I'm always curious, how we all arrived here, to kind of where we are today.
It's a kind of funny. It's not like it was. I guess that applies for many people. It's not like you were born thinking I'm going to be a data scientist or I'm going to work in data. I guess it doesn't happen like that. So um, I did have like a bumpy ride until I arrived to the data kind of space. But the passion around data started in my bachelor. So I took the bachelor in applied maths. So what is called today data science, kind of, I started working there as would they would call it multivariate statistical analysis. So yes, although it was called statistical analysis, we did cover some of the most known kind of machine learning kind of algorithms. And that was where the passion started. This was around 2010, I
Okay.
think, or a bit earlier. My memory is not that good in terms of dates, but definitely at that time there was no many opportunities, at least here around Europe, around what is called today data science.
Mhm.
But I understood quickly from my background that definitely something around data would be very interesting for me professionally.
Interesting. Kind of walk me through that too. I mean, what got you interested in studying math in the first place? I also have a math degree, so I'm always curious about why people choose to do that to themselves.
Yeah, that's a very good question because I guess during my high school I was taking art classes. So I was studying to be an architect, to be honest. And then I did have my first experience in college was around architecture, and I did not enjoy as much as I thought I would,
Hmm.
but I did enjoy the side of maths. Besides, mathematics was that kind of opportunity that opens doors for many different areas without the need for you to get or right away specialized. So it sounded like a good way for you to take a degree, to learn a bit uh, um, about an area in specific, but not get too, too specific about a particular subject. So from there, I knew I could go either for like something more related with computer science, or I could go for something more related with finance, or any other area that has a base on mathematics. That was definitely what led me to a go for applied maths, definitely.
Yeah, it does give you, I think, a solid foundation to do
Yep,
pretty much everything. So maybe not like,
exactly.
yeah, maybe not like being a race car driver or something, but like you could uh, yeah, I think the statistics especially it's interesting because at the time I think when you were getting into finishing up your degree, it was also the time when data was becoming, I think this um,
A
it was
bit
at least
more
becoming,
sexy.
yeah, it was because I mean I worked in data in the 2000s and it was definitely anything except sexy. It was like the least sexy job that you could have. I think
Exactly.
like cleaning gum off the undersides of tables would probably be more attractive than working with data back then. So yeah, but I did notice though that the math background helped a ton just in terms of making sense of stuff, even if you didn't have a business background. Like that, I think was relatively easy to pick up versus the concepts of stats and math. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
well, I did have that rationale, and it seems like paid off.
yeah. Well, timing, accounts for a lot of stuff too. And I would say when you were getting the data, it was right when things were taking off. And fast forward 11 years to today, and it's we have whole communities and businesses and all kinds of fun stuff that we'll talk about that's spun off this, which it's pretty awesome. So I mean, so you did math, you got into data. What was it like? But you said it was also tricky back in the day too, in Europe, right, with data science, because there wasn't a lot of resources. I mean, how did you figure that path out to get into data science?
Yeah, definitely. There was not a lot of resources, also not that many opportunities, or at least the opportunities that you were looking in terms of, professional challenges that you found to be really related to what you wanted to do. In many places, data science was kind of, and I'm not saying this is not important because part of my path was related with that. So it's not like many of the challenges were related around data processing or getting like good databases or doing ETL. Sometimes data science was called doing that stuff, doing visualization. And it's not like it's not useful, it is. And at the time, you might seem you are not doing what you want, but some years fast forward, I see how those experiences were really important for what I know today.
Yeah.
But back in the days, it's harder to understand how useful they are going to be. And on that sense, I think a lot of my development was done a bit because I did enjoy and I did really like this area. So I did a lot of studying, a lot of exploration by myself until I found the real opportunities where I could grow more professionally. But either way, I was working always either on companies that were starting the data analytics journey, or companies that had a lot of struggles in terms of different things like data management or the right access to data and so on. So that's why I consider it to be like a bumpy ride into getting like into the data space. But definitely, I think it was a very rich experience in that sense.
Yeah, it seems, well, yeah, and I think it goes to show too, there's not like a linear progression into data. Maybe there is now, I think, but it's still like you're gonna come at it from one side, and but then you start noticing things along the way, like data is really hard for a lot of different reasons, right? I mean, what were some of the challenges that you would see early on with these companies that were trying to get started with data?
I would use like this good expression. They wanted to start building the house by the roof, essentially. It's a really good expression for this, but it's like if you want to start digging into world of data, you have to ensure that you have the foundations in place. And I'm talking about the basic stuff like a good database to support your analytics, a good understanding of what data do you have, and also a good understanding of you want to achieve. So, and many of the times, the first and most important thing, which is knowing exactly what you want to achieve or what questions you want to ask, they were not completely clear about it. So the strategy was we have to have AI. This is the business strategy. And to have that in mind, so your business strategy is to have AI because you need it, because it's sexy, it's not a good way in order to measure the return on investment that you are doing. And a lot of times also that return on investment is not measurable. So a lot of what happened is you get these POCs, you start building some kind of proof of concepts, but after the proof of concept is achieved, it's very hard for you to prove the value it can bring. So it's also very hard to, get the right investment, to build the right foundations, to hire a proper team, and afterwards to go, for the next step into really put AI into production. So and really shooting for, I think many organizations at least they were shooting for the stars when they started investing in AI. They didn't know exactly what they want to achieve, and they did thought it was something very simple and somehow relatable with the way software was done. But unfortunately, there are structural differences in what is a project, a software project, and a data project. And I think a lot of those organizations were not ready to that thought. Combined with the fact that many of them didn't even know what is a good data management or a proper data management, I think it was the recipe for not having successful AI in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it echoes a lot of the stuff that I've seen as well. It seems like it's getting better now. I don't know what your thoughts are, if you're seeing at least maybe companies approaching AI differently or more intelligently.
I think so. And I want to believe that one day we will achieve a good maturity. I guess it happened the same with software a few years ago, or even with the big data space, which is not that much difference from what we see now with machine learning in that sense. So it's a new space, it's a new area. There are two gray areas, a lot of them. So there are not much definition. So the ones that start implementing, or the ones that start doing it, they are there are no processes, nothing set in place that tell you exactly how to do stuff. So you will commit a lot of errors. Will experiment a lot of different strategies, and also a lot of different products will born from the needs. Some of those will stay in the market because they prove to be exactly to solve the issues for what they were built. Others will die, and that will be a long journey of a few years until there is this maturity, and there is this guidelines book for companies to start implementing AI in the right way that take them to the right path. Fortunately, we already see these good practices coming out of some good and big technologicals coming outside and starting to be implemented in different areas and different type of companies. But of course, there are still a lot to be done and also lots to be defined. We see the MLOps concept until I guess 2 years ago, no one would talk about MLOps, and now it's one of the most important things that we see, and almost the only thing that we see right now.
Yeah. And it seems like there's, I would say, that the ML app space and ML engineering, there's hopefully I always think that data seems like it's about 10 years behind where software is. I mean, hopefully that timeline is a bit compressed because we've been able to see what software engineers and DevOps have done and adopt those much more quickly and make them appropriate for data. But I guess we'll see. And it is super early days, in the ML ops and ML engineering space. It's exciting to watch everything unfold in real time. It seems like every day is a new adventure. Whereas I think a lot of the bigger companies, Google and Amazon, whatever, they've been doing this stuff for a while. But even then they had to make it up as they went along. It's not like there was a playbook back then to do this stuff. And it's not like the stuff that they do is, the most appropriate for a smaller company because they built these solutions to
exactly
on their use cases. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the current landscape of MLOps?
Definitely very interesting, and I see it booming like every day. So new companies are arising. I guess also new pain points are being identified as part of the cycle of MLOps, which
Mhm.
is nice to be seen. But what I feel is there is still a path to go around MLOps in order to be considered like a solid space in a sense. It's a booming space, but I think it's still a bit undefined in the sense of what is MLOps and until where does MLOps go and where it starts, other areas of the data kind of machine learning space. We see MLOps booming. We also see now the data ops space rising, and we see many other kind of ops spaces kind of rising in the sense of the ML area. So I'm curious to see how all of those will relate in between each other, and which ones will remain. Because, I do believe that not everything that comes born, let's say, not everything that rises will remain. It will depend a bit on the market adoption, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard one. Like I don't know. I can't pick the winners in this space just yet, right? Because it's like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
yeah, lots of new companies, lots of funding, um, and lots of really smart people in the space. It's hard to say because I think you point out
Exactly.
like, well, what are people going to buy at the end of the day, right? And adopt, and it's still anybody's guess. So, but you started a company in the
Yeah.
space. You want to walk me through that? That's got to be a fun
Yes.
story. So,
Yes, for sure, for sure. Um, it was while I was working for another company, and while talking with my co-founder, and let's say, I won't say complaining, but it is a bit talking about the frustrations of working with data, that we identified this kind of challenges that we were going through. So myself, I was working as lead data scientist for a startup. My co-founder was managing data projects, and both of us, we had like this uh, like huge struggle. So the data access was like the biggest barrier ever, and also in terms of afterwards quality. And I'm not even just talking about how useful is the data to answer my question, because that's also part of the quality, but I'm talking about, the smaller like the smaller pieces of the quality, like how do you collect your data in order to get in a nice shape for the data science kind of teams use it? How do you ensure that it's accurate for the use case that you want to target? How do you ensure that you do have all the data, or of course you will have missingness? So how to deal with that missingness, and also how to deal with the fact that for some corner cases you will end up having very few data points. So I was working with geographic data, which is probably one of the most messy data that you can find. It comes from the GPS cell phone. So there are a lot of different variables that can impact the quality of the data. And it's not something that you can only control with a nice ETL that is set up. Of course, the ETL side or the collection side affects a lot. I did found many times that my data was getting useless because of changes from the engineering side that was causing the data to be, let's say, dirty in a way that was not reliable anymore. But also all the other factors around small data and imbalanced kind of behaviors, and a lot of missingness that is very natural to GPS data that, well, led me into, well, why not no one is looking into this? specifically. Like we lose so many times in trying to, address the struggles and getting sometimes crafty to have those solved. Maybe there is a way to get the right tools in order to first understand in a fast manner what are the problems that we are having, like without losing weeks of doing exploratory data analysis and then finding out that maybe, just maybe, you did something wrong with the sampling and your exploratory data analysis is not that accurate. And on the other hand, knowing the problems that you have, how can you mitigate them? Of course, it's very hard to solve all of them. There are many problems around data quality that are not related with tooling, are more related with culture and company and people. But the ones that you can solve with tooling, why not? So that was what led us to start the company by the end of 2019. It was a decision. So we had the idea a few months, not many. We dropped our full-time jobs and we started working on the concept for the company. Happily, we got financed in the beginning of 2020.
Nice.
Really like 1 month after the pandemic hit it hard on Europe. So it was like very good timing.
Wow.
Because we knew that after, I think it was around March, April or something, it was kind of hard for companies to get, there was too many instability and no one knew what was going to happen. So also there were hard times for companies to get financial backed. So after that, now here we are, still running the company and happily growing.
That's awesome. Good for you. Yeah, that was it was a scary time, I think, for everybody. I run a company too, and I think anyone who runs a company and anyone who works at a company, I mean, pretty much everybody on Earth at the time was, I think, had a lot of uncertainty, right? But we all pulled through it, and it's interesting to see what spawned out of it too, like companies, communities, which we'll talk about in a bit, and a bunch of stuff. It's stuff that I don't know that anyone really imagined would have been possible if you were in December of 2019, for example, and saying, oh yeah, in a year and a half time, I mean, there's going to be a big spawn of virtual communities and companies and all this stuff. Yeah, so it's interesting. And like talking about entrepreneurship for a bit. I mean, walk me through that whole journey. Leaving what I assume to be a pretty good job and taking the leap of faith to start a company. What was that like?
Yeah, so many people would say that it's risky and you shouldn't do it. And it's true, it's risky anyway. And it's a lot of responsibility and it's a lot of your own motivation to keep it going, of course. But at the time, it sounded like the right time to do it. And it is now or never. Because if you don't get if you don't get yourself free from any other job, your mindset to create a company will be always keeping on the, let's say, as a backup. I will work on my company whenever I have time. And that is very hard to build a company that way. So knowing this was something I really enjoy doing, and it was a problem that in reality exists, and I wanted to have it sorted out, I decided to jump and start it. Of course, my co-founder played a big role on this. He convinced me to do that in that sense. Having the right partners to build the business, I guess it's halfway through for you to believe this is going to work. And job, to have a good job, well, in the area we are, fortunately, to have a good job today, it doesn't matter that you cannot find another.
Right.
So the it makes sense. It seemed like a very good risk to be taken.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fast forwarding to today, it is even more challenging that you foresee when you start the first time. There are a lot of different things that you never have done before. There are a lot of different things that you never thought you would be doing. And especially for profiles like, I guess I would say mine, I'm a person that really enjoys to be behind the computer, writing the code,
Mm-hmm.
doing the stuff, the stuff around the maths, doing the models, etc. But to be talking every day with new people, to knowing every day other persons, to be outside of your comfort zone every day, it was something that I didn't foresee would happen like it is happening today. Uh, but on the other hand, I do like it a lot in the way that I get challenged every day, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like uh, I have learned more in this 2 years kind of time than I would learn working in a company, let's say. I
Right.
know they are different experiences, but you get a different perspective of what is to be, I don't know, what is to be in a company, and what it does it take to build a company. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's very good.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work in areas. I like you say, I don't think people appreciate until you're out there actually doing it. Um, having to, especially when you start hiring employees, right now,
Yeah,
you know, you got to hustle. You got to get out there and make something happen. Um, and it's, yeah, I know personally, it's stretched me a lot, in good ways. And you just learn to be more efficient because you have to be.
yes.
So,
I was talking with my co-founder the other day. There are things that today, I guess, I do them in, I don't know, half an hour. That prior to be an entrepreneur, I would take like at least 1 week and being super perfectionist and to in order to get it perfect, like in the right way I like it. And nowadays, I don't have that luxury of having 1 week to do it. So I just have to get conscious of the time, maximize the way I use it, and well, give my best in the time I have. And I wouldn't say it works badly. It works very, very well. And you just develop new skills and new ways to do the same stuff. So
yep.
I guess it's amazing how we see it differently after having your own company.
Yeah, for sure. I find that, I think I struggle with is delegating. Um, but definitely getting a lot better at it. But it's one of those things where just the list just grows, right? And at some point, you have to hand stuff off. So, but I'm always a bit of a perfectionist too, right? Like, well, it needs to be done a certain way, and so. But you just need to trust people that they'll do the best job they can and empower them. And a lot takes care of
Exactly.
itself. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
And
Um,
definitely, as you mentioned, people are the most important part. But
mhm.
prior to start a company, you sometimes don't believe this that way. I've heard some software engineers saying managers are like these persons that they don't understand what they do while they
Mhm.
are taking care of persons and some stuff. But after this experience, you see differently. So people are definitely the most important aspect,
Yeah.
regardless of they are your own team, your customers. the community is whatever.
Yeah, it is. And it's cliched, but yeah, people are everything. And so, I
Yes.
mean, it's true, right? But yeah, I mean, I used to be that person too. I was like, oh yeah, managers, they suck, and and all this stuff. And it just reminds me of like a rebellious teenager, thinking the parents are just garbage. And then I think when you become a parent, it's like you realize how much work it actually is. I deal with this right now. I got a 10-year-old who's uh, he's starting to get some attitude. So, but I don't know. But I was also that age once, and it's
Yeah.
horrible. So I think we all were. But yeah, you grow up. I mean, having a business too, it's especially in the data field, I think it's an exciting place to be because there's just so much going on. We have totally different businesses, but it's a fast moving field.
Yeah.
And it's which makes it exciting. I think is also um, you have to stay on top of stuff. And I think that's both the part of the fun and part of the challenge, like staying current on the
Yes.
field. And also, I think people like us, we're also pushing the field forward. It's not just trying to stay current, but also like where are we going to take things? Because it's in a lot of ways, it's a greenfield opportunity. Like the stuff you're working on, which we'll talk more about in a bit. It's like you're working on something that's new. People haven't done this kind of stuff
Yeah.
before. Therefore, I guess how do you want to invent the future? So
Yeah, exactly. On one hand, it's very fulfilling because you are doing something new, and if you do achieve the success, you feel like you are on top of the world. But on the other hand, it's also very greenfield and very new, so it's harder for the others also to understand you, what you are doing, what you are building, the importance of what we are building. And also it's harder to get the right resources. So it's not like I'm not just talking about the hiring, right? So that's one of the sides. The other side is the tooling that exists nowadays to support your ideas and what you are trying to build. So definitely there are two sides. I guess it depends on your personality, where you are a risk taker or not, I guess.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, to bring it back to YData and data quality, like what are some
Yeah.
of the challenges um, that a lot of companies face with data quality? And I guess what would be some best practices that they should consider, or some considerations they should consider around data quality?
Well, not only around what we do at YData, we are focused definitely on the side of the data preparation for machine learning, where we do believe there are, besides to have the right tooling available, data science teams in some cases are, let's say, more juniors, or the technical depth is really high. So you have to know a lot of things in machine learning in order to get things properly done. And sometimes you have a very small team to do it, like 2, 3, 4 persons. That's not enough. Sometimes the challenges that you find within data, they are too big. In a way, the technical depth is so big that it's very hard for your team to deliver it. So why not to leverage tooling that enable you to do, to remove a bit of that technical depth and also give more hands and more tools to your own team. And the other side that we found to be very important around data quality, and especially on the data preparation side, which is where we are focusing, is the standardization. We do find uh, a lot of problems coming from doing things in an ad hoc manner. So you build one process, you build another person build a function to do exactly the same, but it's different, and it end up resulting in different understandings of the same problem and of the same data set. And that's very risky, especially when you are uh, building insights for your company. Of course, I'm talking about the more low level kind of problems, but there are other kind of data quality issues that are very interesting to solve. Like many organizations have several different data sets, in which of them they have the same persons, but they cannot relate them. There are no explicit ways to relate them. So it's like you have different visions from the same problem inside, but you don't know how to combine them. So all of that stuff does relate with data quality, and it's where we are helping companies. It's really solving and mitigating this, always driving for, of course, scalability. This is one important, always important aspect. The other is standardization, and last but not least, reduce the technical debt of the data science teams.
Makes a lot of sense. You hit on something that's been on my mind a lot too, sort of the concept of a golden record.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, how do you see people solving this? I know it's been like a classic area of, master data management and stuff, but in machine learning, I'm curious if you've seen any successful approaches in this.
To be honest, and to be completely honest, I haven't yet found like the perfect solution for exactly that problem. So we see a lot of attempts, like from rule-based kind of solutions to unsupervised methods, but I haven't yet found the perfect match to have that problem sorted out. But in my opinion, is definitely one of those that the ones who identify the right way to do it, or at least give the right tool to have it, sorted out, are definitely winners. And it's a lot of information that you can leverage and relate inside of a company. And I know that many companies, when they built their data systems, they never thought they would need to combine them. And that is where you start understanding there are a lot of information that just gets lost. Doesn't mean it is useful sometimes, but there are aspects that sometimes they are useful. And we are also seeing issues rising from the data privacy world that are making this happen even more recurrently. So because of the privacy aspects of things, many data science teams are given access to data sets that have no identifiers. So a lot of the times they cannot relate different data sets in a way they would be if they have those identifiers. So I guess this problem will start even to be more recurring in the data science world.
Interesting. Yeah. What role would synthetic data play in helping mitigate this?
So synthetic data on that space and on the data quality space, how does it help? It can help in two different ways. So one of the ways is the data access, for which we see, especially for structured data, we see synthetic data rising a lot. So as you are able to build synthetic data records that hold the utility and information of the original ones without replicating a one-to-one relation with the original one, you get new data sets that are private by design. So this in a way helps with the golden kind of standard, just in a sense that you can have more granular information without that a lot of concerns with the privacy aspect. So things that you would remove or group together, you don't need no longer to do it. On the other hand, synthetic data can also be very useful to some use cases that I mentioned earlier. For example, whenever you have a kind of behavior that is less represented than others, you can use synthetic data to have that behavior augmented. So data set augmentation might be similar, might seem easy when you are working with independent records and very well-behaved data. But when it comes to, let's say, multivariate time series or even geographical data and GPS data, it's when augmenting data sets starts to be less straightforward. And I think this is where synthetic data plays a huge role. You also see already conditional generation of data, so you can kind of, based on the real behavior, generate behaviors that are a bit controlled by you. You see this in the world of the image space, but is also starting to be applied in the generation of structured data as well. So you already see this for self-driving cars, where you do have, let's say, you don't have like a snow landscape with your car, and you want to synthesize and get like those synthetic images where you have cars in the snow landscape. The same can be done for time series, or for example, in stocks, financial services. This can be highly helpful to simulate scenarios for you to calculate risk, for example.
Interesting. Yeah, it seems like it's an area that it's synthetic data, especially. It seems like it's an area that's blowing up quite a bit. You also run a synthetic data community, right?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Cool.
Through our own experience, but we started the community because we do see a lot of interest in this area booming and starting now. But we also see that there are not many materials around the topic. So if you want to find ways to do it using, I don't know, GANs or variational encoders, or any kind of deep generative model that you would use, there's no much materials that you could use in order to do your own research and also to learn a bit. So based on that, based on our own experience of missing sometimes those materials and having to learn by our own to overcome the challenges, we have decided to start the community exactly for
That's
that.
cool.
For education, mainly.
That's really smart. So, yeah, 'cause it seems like with everything being new, it's maybe crowdsourcing, leveraging, some of the best minds in the field. Hopefully, it pushes things fast. And I would like to get your take on this too, with respect to MLOps. Do you think there's a role with synthetic data? Sort of certain. So in software engineering, right? You have the notion of like mock objects, for example, and testing and so forth. I mean, do you see a role of synthetic data sort of playing similar capacities with MLOps, maybe?
Definitely. And just like you said, so far we have been used to use the data as it is from production systems, because we do have to keep the utility of the data. But we also see now the concerns around the use of data, especially if it's production data, and how you are making that data available for, I don't know, for like users, like the data scientists, to get hands on the data. So those concerns are rising the privacy restrictions that you see already in Europe. I don't know, Brazil, also California, I know it has as well. So many countries are already adopting. This will make the use of original data harder and harder, to a point that if you want to test out your developments, you might need synthetic data to do so. Also, and a bit different from privacy, synthetic data for machine learning can play an important role for the testing and stress tests. We don't see many companies stress testing the models, like throwing black swans or unpredictable events, or events that are less common. So, but there are organizations that already do it using synthetic data. So more and more, I think MLOps will lie on synthetic data as a tool to ensure automation and testing, so you can deliver models into production that are more reliable as well. So I think that will be definitely the role.
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, and there's a new EU AI initiative that's coming down the pipe at some point too. So
yeah, and I guess regulations will keep coming out.
Yeah,
there will be still a lot of years in order to have those regulations being 100% applied, I guess. But we will have to deal with the ethics around AI sooner than later. So I think when that time comes, companies will understand a bit better the importance of this kind of synthetic data sets and so on.
Yeah, it seems like it. And it's good to be proactive right now. I saw the mad scramble of everybody trying to get compliant with GDPR like the day before it came out.
Yes.
Went into effect. It was pretty funny to watch. So, yeah, that's interesting. Um, on the notion of community, I mean, so you do synthetic data community. You also, I think you're pretty core to the MLOps community. Is that right as well?
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes. Well, we were lucky enough to found the MLOps community when was in its baby steps, in a sense that, well, I guess everyone was bored to be at home. Everyone was in need for human touch in a way, and we saw this community like rising and appearing with very smart and sharp minds there. Everyone wanted to discuss the importance of machine learning, and we thought, let's join as well. We are interested in this space. We see ourselves and revise ourselves in this space. And we always had like this mindset of give first. So what's the better space than community to be close to our users, to learn from others, and well, if needed, give something to others. That's what MLOps was for us. It was that space where we could listen to very nice talks, have the opportunity to know different people from different areas with different like backgrounds that enriched our vision as well of the space, because you always have your own interpretation of what is happening, and your interpretation gets better and better the more people from different areas and different backgrounds you know. So definitely on that side. And afterwards, and as we do have like we are more related with the side and the aspects of data itself, it poses the opportunity to start also sharing that knowledge with the community from our side. So explaining first in a more kind of privacy perspective. So showing to the community how privacy and what new things are arising around privacy in the ML space that could impact a lot MLOps. And now, more recently, we are working on a piece more around how data quality can definitely impact MLOps on this, in a sense, and what are the things that can be done.
Yeah, there's a lot to do. So that's really cool. What I found impressive too is the MLOps community, especially. I mean, that grew from nothing to thousands of people now in almost a blink. Really, it's very cool to watch. So there was the what was it? The Apply conference that was I think 2 weeks ago now, something like that. So that was a lot of fun. So it's cool. I guess where do you see things going in the data space over the next 5 years?
Oh, that's a very good
or the
question.
next 5 minutes. I don't know. Pick one.
I would say 5 years. I don't know. 5 years, I guess, in this space, it's already too long. I would say that we are moving so fast that 5 years now sounds like what were before 20 years of evolution. But definitely, I guess we see the space of, there are some hot spaces in the area of data that are rising. MLOps is one of them. I do foresee that MLOps, we will see the front runners definitely starting to getting more emphasis in the market, and I guess we will see the ones that will get the market itself and will be leading this area. Also, I foresee that we see a lot of hot space around data quality, especially on the side of monitoring data. We see great things on that area, and so things that were born like 1 year ago or maybe two tops, and we see them getting a lot of adoption. So I'm really eager to see how does that evolve, and also how will that impact in reality both the MLOps space and also how the data science teams will, grow, because we will see the maturity coming, and this will impact also the users. So I guess I'm looking for that, and hopefully in the near future will have a playbook of the, let's say, best practices for data science. I'm eager to see that as well happening, because I it's still a bit disconstructed. Let's say.
Yeah, it is. It's funny too, because data science, I mean, as a, at least as a term, has been around for, geez, what is it now, 12 years or something? At least in its current form,
Yeah.
right? But it definitely seems like the conversation has recently started moving away from, making models, as the primary concern, and now it's definitely moving into, I'd say, more interesting topics, although I think that was interesting at the time. But yeah, and it'll be interesting too. Like I think there's going to be an interesting confluence between even software engineering and ML engineering, data engineering, and data science, and so forth. Like part of me wonders if there's not going to be some sort of, like, I guess, combination of everything, where like sort of these distinctions, or maybe they go away. Because I think if a company is ML first, right, then it's kind of like,
Yes.
I don't know, these boundaries seem to be a bit artificial, but we'll find out. Maybe there'd be more boundaries in terms. I don't know.
That's a very interesting perspective, definitely, because we do see in companies that are not ML first, we do see some friction, I would say, in between the ML kind of teams and the more traditional kind of engineers. We do see that friction, and I'm eager to see how that friction will be solved for non MLOps, ML driven kind of companies. So companies that were data driven from birth. So I'm really eager to see that, because tooling does not sound like the only thing that needs to be done in order to solve that issue. Tooling helps a lot.
Yeah.
Especially one of the things that I saw helping a lot was the serving side getting sorted out without the need for the a lot of involvement from the engineering teams. But I'm still looking into understand, and also feature stores. That was another one that I saw really solving a big issue that existed around this friction of like data engineers and data scientists.
Yep.
But I guess a lot of the work is still to be done at the, I don't know, I would say company level.
Yeah.
But I'm eager to see that as well.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point too with ML first companies. I think maybe my prediction over the next 5 years is, like, if you're not ML driven or ML first, it's gonna be a lot harder for you as a business. So, but we'll see. I mean, I made the same predictions about data a long time ago, and companies that aren't data driven, they still seem to exist and still seem to make money almost by accident. So I have no idea. It's like, because you get a certain inertia behind you, right? At a certain size.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you make money almost in spite of yourself. So, but again, it's a very competitive landscape too, business in general, right? And I think there's the cycles of how long a business can stay profitable and not evolve. I think that's quickly disappearing.
Exactly.
So.
I think so. And I've seen that, and we are seeing that, for example, in the telco industry. So far, it was an industry that could make millions without, evolving that much.
Right.
Their primary business for networks, it still is networks, but you start seeing disruption in the field around the use of data. The other one, I guess, is insurance companies. We saw that with, I think it was Lemonade, showing that if you do remain doing your business as it is, someday from one year to another, your business could be at stake, and you did not prepare yourself. I guess it is that. So data-driven companies can appear anywhere, anytime, as long as, well, of course, there are infrastructure to support the business, but great minds will come up with the solutions that will disrupt more traditional markets. So I guess it will depend on how those, more traditional companies think. Are they willing to wait and see what happens, or are they willing to really start doing something before it's too late, kind of?
Right.
Yeah, I guess that's what they could do.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see how this unfolds. So it's interesting too, because I mean we work in the more in the data tooling. I have a data consultancy, so it's like we're squarely serving people with solutions, but the application of these solutions towards solving end problems, like that's gonna be fascinating to watch unfold. So cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So for people who don't know who you are, what's a good way to find out more about you?
Well, I'm always available for LinkedIn, Twitter. I also, in a very recurrent manner, sometimes I drop an article in Medium, more technical article. So if you are eager to know more about the synthetic data space, data quality space, I'm always getting my own kind of thoughts about it. So, well, I would say that's a good way to get to know me. And also, well, I'm also another thing that I want to shout out, and I didn't yet mention, it is the AI Infrastructure Alliance, from which we are part. And well, I think it's a very nice initiative to be talking in a way, because one of the things that I've missed in the data space was definitely this concept of AI infrastructure, kind of. So it's something that is very interesting. So if you are curious to know more about that, I think that's also a nice place to, have a look into the company I'm building, and also other companies that are amazing and are in the alliance.
I'm gonna go check out the AI Infrastructure Alliance, right?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So for everybody out there, go check it out because it's awesome. So, well, it's been a lot of fun. So thanks for coming on the show, and looking forward to talking to you again at some point. So
thank you so much, Joe.
okay. All right. Have a good night. See ya.
You too.
Bye.